Welcome to Top Advisor Marketing, where you will learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your practice. Brought to you by Top Advisor Podcasting, a done-for-you podcasting solution built just for trusted advisors. And now, your co-hosts of Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing podcast. We are doing something a little different today, and we like it when we have an opportunity to do something different because we're going to be interviewing Shawn Moons. Now, he and his organization really doesn't focus specifically on financial services, and I love it when we bring on people who aren't just, mired in our industry because it allows them to provide a fresh new look at stuff. And what we're going to talk about today is loyalty and leading loyalty, cracking the code to customer devotion. And every single solitary one of you who's listening to this podcast are looking desperately for those incredibly loyal clients who not only will stay with you forever, but also hopefully provide you with very good referrals and introductions. So Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Grateful to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about where all of this came from. Would you mind giving our audience a brief history of who you are and your partners?
Certainly. So I had the opportunity to join a firm many, many years ago. It's now been almost 31 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. That was founded by a man named Stephen R. Covey. He was a professor at a local university. He had not published the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book yet, but he had created this really amazing, iconic training program that was being utilized by some pretty significant organizations like Procter & Gamble and at the time Saturn, which was sort of the shining star of General Motors. And I joined early on, right when I was in college. And in 1989, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective book was published, which has gone on to become one of the top best business books of all time, and has introduced to our nomenclature, the words we use every day, things like proactive and reactive and think win-win and synergize, things that we didn't use before the 7 Habits came out. Think about how pervasive that is. So I had the opportunity to help Stephen build this organization for many years and had a close association with him for about 25 years or so. Passed away a few years ago, and miss him. He was an amazing, remarkable man. But in the course of my work with FranklinCovey, I had the opportunity to work with literally organizations and leaders and teams across the world around this idea of how can you be more effective in your relationships with your people. What can you do to be more effective in your own leadership of your own life and then your own influence with other people, and then how you organize teams and how you create systems and structure and mission and vision and how you create strategy and how you execute strategy. In the course of all of that, was introduced to a gentleman by the name of Sandy Rogers. Sandy had spent a big portion of his career at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. In fact, was led the team that came up with this notion of the "we'll pick you up." We brought Sandy over to our firm to lead our loyalty practice, and I had the opportunity to work closely with him. And it was really from that work together that created this new book, Leading Loyalty. We feel like this notion of loyalty is absolutely critical in today's world. It requires behavioral change. And there's some specific nuances associated with the book that we'll talk about today that I think are one of the questions we ask is, why does the world need another book on loyalty? And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of books out there, but we think not a lot that talk about specifically how you do it in today's very unique, tough, fast-paced environment. So thus became the birth of the Leading Loyalty book, and we're very excited about it.
Well, every single solitary person has read the book, right? And so that's the Covey book is the handbook for almost every financial services professional. Every coach in my industry will tell you, if you haven't read that book, dear God, where have you been? And I love the fact that it is so pervasive in our lexicon. I mean, every keynote speaker on stage in a financial services conference will use something Covey-esque, right? Which is just freaking awesome.
Or really kind of any stage in any conference. It's been very interesting to see. You watch just television at night and sitcoms and other TV programs, and you see and hear the language from that book. It's really quite remarkable.
Yeah. And it was a hugely influential book with me. I will probably read it, reread it about every About every 24 to 36 months, because I just think it's important to do that. I do that with that, and then I also do that with Think and Grow Rich. Okay, so let's talk about leading loyalty. So
Yes.
Financial services professionals are always trying to figure out how to crack this code. Where do we even begin?
Well, I have to tell you, I'm not sure there's another industry where this is more applicable. Think about what you do as financial services professionals. You really are the ones that provide the pathway to an individual, their ability to achieve their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations, their goals, not just for themselves, but for their families, for their children, for their grandchildren. The ability to create and establish enduring relationships, not just, nice friendly relationships, but loyal advocates, people who will evangelize. I need you to talk to this individual because, man, they have changed my life. This industry is so, I think, tailor-made for the message that we have in creating loyalty. The ability to establish relationships of trust and have long-term loyal relationships with your financial provider, I think is core to who you are and what you do every single day.
Well, break it down. I mean, what should our people be looking for?
Well, so we provide a framework. First of all, I want to just introduce this idea of one of the challenges associated with it, and then what we do in answer to your question. If you look at how your organization is perceived, any organization, you take a look at your organization as financial services providers or any organization out there, there's so much that we do to create a brand, to create a sense of institutional trust, right? I trust that particular brand for this reason or that reason, and there's a lot of money that's invested in marketing and in other kinds of branding campaigns, and all of that is good, right? Even this idea of reward programs and points, and those are good. I don't want to throw any of that under the bus, but our research shows, and we cite in the book, that really that represents only about 30% of how your organization is perceived. 70% of how your organization or any organization out there is perceived really is around the behavior of the frontline people. It's what happens on face-to-face, phone-to-phone, person-to-person kind of relationships every single day. So as much as we want to throw a lot of money at creating a brand and recognition, it's what people do. It's how they behave. So thus became the sort of the dilemma. How do you influence that group? In a traditional organization, say a big retail operation, they have massive frontline people. And the typical nature of the frontline there is that they're the least paid, they're the least trained, they have the highest turnover, and pulling them offline is frankly just not a realistic thing. How do you go about doing that? In the book, we talk about some very specific ways. So think about, as advisors, think about what you do every single day as it relates to these principles and practices. We introduced in the book 3 core principles. Now, at FranklinCovey, really everything we do is what we call principle-based or principle-centered. When we talk about principles, we're talking about natural laws. If you think about the natural law in the physical world that we all know and understand, it's the law of gravity. And we know that law operates whether we agree with it or disagree with it, whether we like it or we don't like it, right? I step off the building and say, yeah, this gravity thing's not for me. The response, what's going to happen to me, is actually pretty predictable. These natural laws are timeless, they're universal, they're self-evident, they're self-validating. They apply today, they applied 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years from now. And just as in the physical world, there are principles that apply in the social world, in the world of human interaction. And so the principles, let me start there and then I'll pause, are empathy, responsibility, and generosity.
Yeah, so empathy, responsibility, and generosity, are these things that are natural to human beings? Are they things that need to be, in your experience, do they need to be trained? Do they need to be like a muscle and exercised? Help me with that.
Yeah, so the question of are these principles things that we need to train, and do we need to create some muscle memory around these principles? And my response to that is absolutely yes. But it goes back to the dilemma that I mentioned just a minute ago when I talked about how your organization is perceived. It really is driven by the behavior of the front line. I was talking to one executive of a major operation, and he said, Shawn, I have 25,000 people. I can't pull these people offline. How can I do this? And I think the question how is one of the biggest questions that people have, and really the reason why we wrote this book. With these three principles, each principle has two corresponding practices. And we engage in a very specific process for training around these principles and these practices that happens very naturally, and it happens within the seams of the workday. Think of it this way, Matt. Think of a huddle that occurs on a football field. How long does that huddle take generally?
I don't know, minute or so, maybe? I don't know.
It's actually less. It's It's about 20 seconds.
Oh.
And it started back in 1918 at Oregon College of, I think it was the Agricultural Technology. And they had a football team. They had a coach who pulled the quarterback aside at the beginning of practice week and said, hey, let's do something new. Before you run your play, why don't you pull your offensive guys together and let's just call the play. Let's just talk about the thing that we're going to do the very next play. Let's not talk about something we did 2 weeks ago in a game or something that's going to happen in practice, a month from now. Let's just call the very next play. Well, that school went on to become Oregon State, and this idea of the huddle now is pervasive throughout American football, right? That's the concept that we engage in and talk about in this book. We really advocate this book. We provide a framework around these three principles and around these 6 practices. If you will take just a few minutes every week and call a play, let's not talk about something that happened, 2 months ago or 3 months from now. Just call, what are we going to focus on this week? We've identified 11 specific huddles that are very actionable and very doable. And quite frankly, for this particular industry, like I said at the beginning, I can't think of another industry where the ability, the need to create a sense of intense loyalty is more appropriate. So we'll provide you in this book a guide to having these weekly, short but powerful huddles.
Hey, would you mind going through the 11 really quick?
I'd love to.
Okay, cool.
I'd love to. So let me quickly just talk about the 6 practices, and then I'll talk about the huddle. So the principle of empathy. This is this idea of, we walk a mile in another person's shoes. We don't have to agree how they agree or see how they see, but we feel how they feel. And so the 2 practices are connecting, making a human connection, recognizing and understanding that this actually is another human being that we're connecting to, and then listening to learn. So huddle number 1 is, here's why it matters to have a loyalty mindset. Huddle number 2 talks about the principle of empathy. Huddle number 3 talks about making a genuine human connection. The idea that our influence with others begins with a genuine human connection. And then we provide some guidelines, how you specifically can do that. Huddle number 4 then is listening to learn the hidden story. In a sense, Matt, each of us comes every day with, think about the comics in your newspaper. We have a thought bubble above our head, just like the characters in the comics. And in that thought bubble, they have their thoughts and their hopes and their dreams and their emotions and how they're feeling. And, and if we took just a minute to understand, to listen to understand, we would make better connections. We would develop greater trust and greater loyalty. So that takes us through huddle 4. Huddle number 5 introduces the principle of responsibility, really taking ownership for what should be done. The core idea there is taking responsibility for others. When we do so, our own stress level drops. We're actually solving problems versus the shrug, right? This real or sometimes symbolic thing that we do that conveys indifference or destroys loyalty. So we talk about that in huddle number 5. Huddle number 6 then associated with the principle of responsibility is the practice of discovering the real job to be done. You go into a store to buy a wrench. If the person helping you doesn't know what you're going to use the wrench for, he or she is not going to help you buy the right tool. And so often in our world and in your world as financial advisors, you need to help your clients understand the right tool, right? This idea of being curious but not pushy, etc. Huddle number 7 is following up to strengthen the relationship. Then we get into huddle number 8, which is one of my favorites. I absolutely love this. It's the huddle. It's the principle of generosity. Generously approaching every circumstance. And the first practice there, huddle number 9, is sharing ideas and insights openly, communicating thoughts and feelings and knowledge and concerns openly. Then huddle number 10, surprising with unexpected extras. Finding ways to be creative, experimenting with new and creative ways to show people that you care. And then we cap it off, Matt, with huddle number 11, which talks about the legacy that you want to leave as a loyalty provider, as someone who generates loyalty. How are your clients, your organization, your community, your family, how are they different because you were there, because you created loyalty? Those are the 11 huddles.
I want to touch on number 10, if you don't mind, because this is, I love the idea of doing surprises. In fact, we just had a person on a podcast yesterday who was talking about like random acts of kindness, right? Just different things that they can do. Could you give some examples of things that you've either experienced before? That'd be great.
I would, and I'd love to, because it makes us so happy when this happens. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, oh my goodness, it is something that we want to talk about with our loved ones. We want to say, can you believe that just happened? Look what, and we start to evangelize. We start to talk about it. Sometimes it's a phone call. You know, my advisor, I have 3 married children, and when each of them got married, he called me up and said, I would love to just talk with the happy couple and see if we can provide some financial guidance as they get started on their married life together. That was not something that he had to do. And I got off the phone and I talked to my wife and said, that was really cool. And I wish I had that opportunity when we were first getting started. But let me give you this example. I was leading an executive team. We had an executive offsite, and I was the consultant in charge of this. We had 2 days of meetings. The afternoon of the first day, we were having a little excursion outside, and I had planned on some inclement weather. I had purchased some ponchos for the people, and it did rain. We had a great time. The problem was everyone's poncho that I purchased had these long sleeves, and they were all fine, but I had the one poncho that had short sleeves. So by the end of that day, I was just soaked literally to the skin, and it was cold. So we went to have our dinner at this restaurant, and the server comes up to us and she says, "How are you doing?" And I said, "We're having a great day. A little cold. I've been out in the rain, but it's been a great day." And she looked at me and she said, I'm going to be right back. Hang on just a second. 2 minutes later, she comes back with a little slip of paper in her hand. She said, "I've just gotten over kind of a nasty cold. I would hate for you to be uncomfortable tonight, and I certainly don't want you to get sick. Would you take this little certificate? Next door, there's a gift shop. And we'd like you to pick out a sweatshirt or a jacket. I want you to be warm and comfortable this evening." She handed me the certificate and walked away. Everyone, our jaws just kind of dropped, and we looked at each other, couldn't believe what we had just seen and experienced. It was remarkable. And we, every time I get back with that group, we talk about it in amazement. I've now shared that story with thousands of people because it had such an impact. The cost to them was insignificant. Think about it as advisors. If one of your clients' children just got admitted or accepted to a university, sending them a sweatshirt, again, talking to your clients' children on financial principles. There's lots of things that can be done. It's such a powerful, powerful practice.
I absolutely love that. Thank you very much for providing us with that insight. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the satisfaction metric pitfall?
Yeah. So sometimes when we ask about, are people satisfied, we're measuring their dissatisfaction, not their satisfaction. I love the notion of net promoter, which on a 10-point scale rates you, 9s and 10s. This is the group that we want everyone to get to. We want to aspire to this group. Are you satisfied? Are you so thrilled and delighted with the service that has been provided that you'll come back and tell your friends and evangelize what just happened, rather than saying, how dissatisfied were you? I think that really is the pitfall. We want to focus on are we providing service in such a way that we're so delighting people, they want to come back, they want to engage us, and they want to talk about this to their friends and to their loved ones.
Now, just to wrap everything up, Shawn, why don't you tell us a little bit about how our audience can connect with you and how they can get the book or maybe hire you as a speaker or a coach? Help us with that.
Well, first of all, would love to have you connect with me on LinkedIn, Shawn Moon. Just send me an invitation, and I will gladly accept that. Encourage you to read the book, and there are ways to connect with me through FranklinCovey or, again, directly through LinkedIn. But as you read the book, we've written this book in such a way that you can read it and engage it that very day. You can begin utilizing the principles. You don't have to engage our firm in order to derive some great value from this book. We would love, however, to have a relationship with you. So if there's a way that we can join you at a conference, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we would be thrilled and honored to participate in any way that we can.
Shawn, thank you very much for your thought leadership today.
Thank you so much, Matt.
If you have not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe now button below. That way, every time we come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. And we will make sure that we have a link to Leading Loyalty, Cracking the Code to Customer Devotion in the show notes. So for Franklin Covey and everybody at Top Advisor Marketing, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Are you ready to change the way you communicate with your clients? Are you tired of being the best kept secret in your area? Learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your business. Contact us today and see what the power of podcasting can do for your business. Click on the Contact Us link on our website at topadvisormarketing.com and set up a call to learn more. Follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for more updates and information.
This was brought to you by Iris.xyz, a platform helping financial professionals become better in business and life through new media and new voices. Visit them and learn more at iris.xyz.